Hi guys, Emily Aurora again. Today I'm going to show you one of my family's favorite dinner recipes. It is, believe it or not, Italian Americanized lasagna. I know it sounds super simple, it is, but it's the best. It is the best lasagna that you will ever eat. If you make it at a family party, everyone's gonna love it. Everyone's gonna want the recipe. This has been my experience, so I'm sharing it with you today because you deserve it. All right, so watch my video. Let's get started. All right, so now I ground the beef. It was 1 pound of ground beef, and I seasoned it a little bit with some garlic powder and garlic salt. It was brown, so it's nice and brown. I'm gonna turn this off, and I'm gonna rinse it off because grease just doesn't, it's not that good in food. This is just, it's silly, it's just super simple. I like to use both of these. I use 2 sauces. I use Prego 3 cheese, and I use traditional ragu. I finished browning the beef, and then I put in the 2 cans of sauce that I showed you, and then I put in half a teaspoon of garlic salt and half a teaspoon of garlic powder. And a lot of people at this point, when they make lasagna, they would reheat everything. They would want to simmer the sauce, and then when you put your lasagna together, the sauce is hot. Well, that's something I don't do, and it's for the same reason that I rinse my beef. And it's because the beef has grease, and I don't know if you've ever made a lasagna and you cut into it and all this juice and water and grease just comes out right away. Well, one reason that happens is because you're supposed to let it rest for like 20 minutes at least before you cut into it once it's done. And another reason is because people don't rinse the beef, and they heat up the sauce and it lets out more grease. And obviously in the oven it's gonna get, it's gonna get hot and a little grease is gonna come out, and yeah, it's gonna be, lasagna gets juicy, but if you let it rest for 20 minutes when it's done, rinse the beef, and don't reheat the sauce, it makes a huge difference. So try it out and see what you think. So I'm going to add in the lasagna noodles, and we're going to cook them till al dente. So now we're gonna grate this big old brick of cheese, and I can't stress this enough. You have to use good mozzarella cheese when you make lasagna. And I mean, it doesn't have to be like the fancy stuff that's super moist that you would put on a plate with tomatoes and basil, but it does need to be good. Like at least this brand, like this Galbani, it's good. You can't get Winco brand, you can't get Walmart brand, it has to be good cheese. Just finished grating this huge brick of cheese, and I love it. I'm excited to put this in the lasagna because cheese is so good. I'm going to take I'm gonna take this, it's supposed to be large curd. I love large curd cottage cheese in my lasagna, and I always use a big thing like this. Unfortunately, I had to go to Winco last night and they were out of large curd. So I have small curd, but I prefer large. Anyway, I'm gonna dump all of this in this bowl. And then we have some sour cream. And it doesn't matter what brand you use. I love Daisy, I just do, but they're all good. I mean, you can find lots of good sour cream. So I'm gonna take probably, for that big container, I'm gonna put about a cup of sour cream in this, and a little salt and pepper. All right, stir this up. Me some salt and pepper. Just a little bit, let's not go overboard. We don't want to kill anybody with salt. Stir it in. And voila. Here's another thing. People will make lasagna and they'll boil the noodles and they'll leave them, you know, just like I have in the sink inside the colander, and they can tend to get stuck together. Mine haven't yet because it hasn't been very long, but it happens. It happens all the time. Anyway, if you run cold water, it's kind of silly, but cold water over the noodles and they're good as new. You don't have to fight with it. They just won't stick anymore. The cold water will take care of that. So nice and easy to work with. All right, so now everything is prepared. We have the sauce, the noodles, we have our cottage cheese and sour cream gombo. We have the delicious mozzarella cheese all grated and ready to go. And one thing that I always like to have handy on the side, and I use whatever I have in my fridge, I mean, except for sharp cheese. But usually I always have some like shredded 3 cheese Mexican blend, and I put that in there too. And maybe that makes it American, Italian, and Mexican. I don't know, but I love it. So it's gonna be good. So first things first, ham. And you know, a lot of people don't like ham because, you know, it's not exactly healthy because it's not natural. You can use whatever you want to grease your pan. You don't have to use Pam. I'm lazy, so I use Pam. All right, so I hammed the pan, and now I'm just gonna take a little bit of this sauce right here, and I'm just gonna put it's not for a layer, it's not for flavor, it's just kind of to grease the pan as well. It's just, and so that the noodles on the bottom aren't just gonna be sitting on top of Pam and getting all browned. So I just take a little sauce and I try to get, you know, the least amount of meat that I can, because you don't want the meat to burn on the bottom. It never has, but I always just think it might. So I just try to get more sauce. All right. So there we go. It's probably like a 1/4 cup of sauce just sitting on the bottom. All right. So next we're gonna take these noodles, these beautiful al dente lasagna noodles. And I like to layer them just perfectly. Sometimes I'll kind of move them a little, figure out exactly where I want them. Okay, so one side is always just going to be, you know, just all wonky, like what the heck, I don't know what to do with this. So I always just take a noodle, I don't know, I'm sure everyone does it, it's just what I do. I take a noodle Let me put it right there. Nice, get a little handy dandy butter knife. And cut it. Sometimes I cut it before it's in the pan. It's a little bit more convenient to just know that about this much, if you have to put a noodle there, this much should be cut off if you have to do an end piece. I think it appears to be about 2.5 inches. Alright, so we had a little distraction. So we got this cutie in the video now with her little wild hair. But anyway, so we did the 5 noodles this way, and then we cut that noodle, as you saw. And then, you know, noodles are wonderful in lasagna, and I thought that they were like the best thing ever. So one time I piled up noodles. I did so many noodles, and guess what? It wasn't the best thing ever. So be careful. But I do like noodles, so I add 1 extra right in the middle of it. Just 1 right here. And that's just on top of the first layer. So then we're gonna add sauce. Sauce always goes on top of the noodles. It helps the noodles stay nice and perfect, like al dente. And you know, once in a while people make lasagna and for some reason the edges of the noodles get all hard and crunchy, and that's because they're not covering them in sauce. Sauce goes on the noodles, folks. Only 1 layer will have cheese before sauce, but for some reason that works out for me, and it's in the middle, so we don't have any crunchy things popping up and ruining our day or our dinner. So a generous amount. Make sure you get the corners, because that's the things that will pop up and get crunchy. It's always the corners. Okay. Alright, so we got 1 layer here. So we do noodles, and then we're gonna do sauce, and then we're gonna do some of this wonderful, delicious mozzarella cheese. I could live off cheese. I love cheese. I'm the cheesecake lady, but you know, I should be the cheese lady, because charcuterie boards are my thing. I could live off cheese. So you just have to get a little bit of cheese right after each layer. There we go. So there's that. Now, since on my last layer I started and I backed up the noodles lengthwise, I started at this corner and then I had to do a little alteration to this noodle on this side. Since that's what happened, I'm going to do the opposite on this layer. I'm going to line them up perfectly over here. So here's the last thing I did. I added more noodles, and this is the only layer where we are going to put it's cottage cheese and sour cream instead of sauce right directly on the noodles. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this on here. So I'm going to put, again, some of this delicious mozzarella cheese. Oops, don't want to waste it. Alright. And we want to make sure that we save enough for the top, because the top is just, it's the most important part for the cheese. You just want to put enough cheese in between that kind of holds the layers together. You're not trying to like put a ton of cheese in the middle. I mean, it's a lot of cheese, but you know what I'm saying? It needs to be on the top. So I put this cheese, and this is just kind of the funky part of the whole recipe. Like, I don't think anyone else does this. It's just me. I'm kind of, quirky. But I'm just gonna put blobs of sauce on top of all this. This sauce that's left, if it was all on top, it would be way too much just for the top. And so I'm gonna share it with this layer, like so. All right. So that's probably, the most unattractive layer of our lasagna, but nobody sees it. That's the beauty of it, because it's covered up by more, and it's so delicious that everyone's gonna love it. Cool. So I got that noodle on there. I'm gonna get these ones down. Okay, I'm gonna put the rest of this sauce over here on top. As you can see, this cheese, there's a lot, but it's a little sparse for just being, I like a big layer of mozzarella on top of my lasagna, but we shared it so much with the other layers, and it's just a little sad, so this little Mexican cheese over here just wants to be friends and combine with it. Our American Italian lasagna is all set. It's going to go in the oven at 350 for probably about 50 minutes. Some people like to cover it with foil and cook it for an hour and a half, and when there's the last 20 minutes they take it off and they let it broil. I don't like to do that. I also think that makes the lasagna extra wet and ridiculous, so I don't do that. Voila. We're gonna cut into this baby and let's see if I'm right. I let it rest and it shouldn't be as wet and juicy and greasy. It looks so good. Put one of these delicious breads. Promise it's better than it looks. And you have yourself a delicious American Italian gourmet lasagna dinner. Thanks for watching my video, everyone. I'm going to be making some more videos this week for whatever meals I think everyone might enjoy. And thank you so much for watching. Bon appetit!